Sociology officially begins with a man by the name of Auguste Comte. The term sociology had been used at least a quarter of a century before he used the term, although many think he was the one who coined the term. He is the one who developed the discipline. It started in France, and that should be of particular interest when you combine the location and the timing. It started in France in the early part of the 19th century, the early 1800s. Auguste Comte himself was born just a few years after the French Revolution, 1789 to 1791. The French Revolution is a major dividing point in world history. I think it would be helpful for you to be aware of the things that come out of the French Revolution, which happened during the Enlightenment. And it was the struggle between science and faith. What's going to be dominant? Is science going to rule, or is God going to rule? Those aren't new concepts. They date back to at least the late 1700s. Comte was an atheist, which was typical of many scientists during that time. He once said the only real life is collective life, the collective life of the race. And he said individual life has no existence and exists only as an abstraction. Boy, was that prophetic for the times we live in today, the postmodern age. Think about that. Only real life has no existence. And the only real life doesn't exist as an individual, it exists as a collective life. Think about tribalism. Think about the tribes we live in today, the whites, the blacks, the Asians, the Hispanics, the gays, the transgenders, on and on and on. Comte was really prophesying, in a way, that there would come a day like today. And that period of time, the 19th century, the 1800s, as you move on through the 1800s, it sees the birth of a lot of the social sciences, and they were born usually out of atheistic thinking. There is no God. Science has replaced God, and we need to follow the science. That's not new phraseology. Comte saw society in three evolutionary stages. And so his sociology is built on those three stages. The first stage was theological, second stage was metaphysical, and the third stage was positivistic. Let's look at those stages just very briefly. Theological stage. He considered that the most primitive of stages, and it was the stage that existed before the French Revolution. It was when God and government were basically the same thing. And we still have some governments like that, if you think about Iran and some others existing in the world today. Very primitive governments, as described by Auguste Comte. The second stage was the metaphysical stage. Metaphysical stage, in Comte's mind, doesn't really apply so much to Aristotle and to Augustine or to Aquinas. It applies primarily to the events of the French Revolution, the metaphysical aspect of a society being born out of higher ideals, that there is something above us, there is something that is innate within us, that there is something both of a spiritual aspect of man and a physical aspect of man. We saw that in the birth of our own Constitution, 1776, and in America, the United States, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, that we are a nation that focuses on rights that are given by God, and that we have certain rights that are both from nature. That term in those days was almost completely synonymous with science, and nature's God. Third stage here is the positivistic stage. That's the stage we're trying to get into today, and there's been a lot of tension. Our postmodern society has been born out of enormous chaos. Postmodernism in itself is a constellation of ideas that was actually born in Auguste Comte's Sociology, but also comes to the point where it contradicts it. So it's kind of counterintuitive. It's kind of hard to explain postmodernism, but the stage we're in now is that attempt to eliminate anything and everything metaphysical, anything of the soul, anything of the spirit, anything of God, anything of higher ideals, and move to only things that can be proved by cause and effect. So that's kind of a brief overview. Those three primary foundational points of sociology, that is the theological stage, the metaphysical stage, and the positivistic stage. By the way, if you substitute scientific stage, you'll understand what positivism is. Those are the three stages that we're going to be studying in this class. This week, we're studying some of those ideas. Our 3-week course, the first week is primarily on symbolic interactionism, which is critical for you to understand as a minister. Next week, we're going to be looking at functionalism. And then the third week, we're going to be looking at crisis theory. There's always this continuum of ideas from symbolic interactionism, which is on a micro level. The other two, functionalism and crisis theory, are on a macro level. In so many ways, sociology was related to Auguste Comte as he relates himself through the ages, and then his ideas are picked up by a number of men, one of which was Karl Marx. Start with Auguste Comte, end with Karl Marx. That's this class. Glad to have you in it.